Social media is their reality.
Yeah, if I'm feeling down, then I'll look on those things and they'll just make it worse.
They have designed their algorithms and their networks exactly to cater to human pathology in its most extreme forms.
I originally set out to make a documentary that explored the possible positive benefits of diminished or controlled social media use. What I actually uncovered was something far, far darker.
Today we're going to be discussing how to manipulate a psychopath or narcissist. The first thing we need to look at is exactly why you would want to do this. Your intent, the intent needs to be very, very clear. Manipulation is manipulation. There is a negative overtone because you are effectively affecting somebody's intent. What they would normally do, you're affecting it so that they're going to do something else. So your intent and your objectives need to be very clear inside your mind. If you were going to do anything, any sort of endeavor that you're going to engage on, start with the end in mind and have it crystal clear. Because if you are going to start interacting with a cluster B on any level, everything gets very unclear very, very quickly. If you are interacting in a way where you're trying to redirect their intent and their thoughts, it can get messy rapidly. You need to start with a crystal clear intent. What am I seeking to gain from this? And is it for the highest good of you and everyone concerned? Is it for your highest good and for everyone concerned? If it isn't, don't do it. Don't embark on this because the karma can get heavy. And what emotion is motivating you? If you are motivated by fear or motivated by rage, this is psychology. It sounds a little bit woo, but it's psychology. That emotion, or loneliness, or despair, or whatever it is, that emotion is in the seed intent of what you're setting out to do. You're coming from fear. You're coming from loneliness. You're coming from rage. That will inevitably create negative consequences further down the line. If you're genuinely going to try and manipulate somebody on the cluster B spectrum, that means what you're saying is, I'm going to try and manipulate a master manipulator who's had a lifetime of experience. So you're going to go and jump in the ring with a black belt. Okay, I'm going to show you some things that will help, but there's no guarantees here. And if you're not doing it for your highest good or of the ecology of the people around you, your kids, your family, or whatever, and you're not coming with the right emotion, please don't do it. Because whilst you might think, oh, it doesn't really matter, I'll get away with it. Yes, I'm coming from rage, I'm coming from vengeance, but it's okay, I'll get away with it. Don't come crying to me when it all blows up in your face. Next slide, please, sir. Okay, manipulation, what does it mean? There is, as I said, a negative overtone to manipulation. This is from the Oxford English Dictionary: to control or influence somebody or something, often in a dishonest way, so that they do not realize that manipulation is occurring. If they know the manipulation is occurring, that is not manipulation anymore. That's some weird game you guys are in. And, you know, there could be some positive overtones to that. If I'm manipulating you and you know it, well, that might be coaching. I'm manipulating you to feel a different way. I'm going to guide you in a different way. And I could even say to you, as you'll have seen in YouTube videos, I'll say, hey, I'm putting ideas in your head. I'm suggesting you feel this way for your benefit. And you can go, okay, I'll go along with that manipulation. But usually it means to control or influence in a way that they don't know that it's occurring. If you're doing it, the second meaning, which I think was the most interesting for what we're talking about today, and the meaning I want you to embrace, is to control or use something in a skillful way, as in to manipulate the gears and levers of a machine. There will be a recurrent theme today where I'm going to ask you to take your ego, your personality, your story, your narrative, your emotions out of the situation. Because that's what master manipulators do. If you're taking notes, that was one you should have written down. You take your story, your ego out, your emotion out. If you want to be a good manipulator, you should regard the other person as a machine to be controlled. You find the buttons, you find the levers, you find whatever it takes to make that machine give you the output you're looking for. This is systems thinking theory. You are also a machine. You're not you. You're not Sarah, you're not Bob, you're not Jeff. You're not angry at your ex-wife trying to get her to see her kids more, blah, blah, blah. She's bloody alcoholic. She never shows up. No, forget all of that. It's a systems issue, systems thinking. I am a machine. I am a human entity. This other person is a machine. They're a human entity. They have levers. They have buttons. They have various reasons why they do what they do. And you want to align with that. So what we're doing today, you would have like a lot of my metaphors will be computer or machine based. This is from systems theory, it's called. It's a great, it's not psychology. I think it's got more in relation to anthropology, but it's a really, really useful way of looking at human beings, especially when we want to influence their behavior. That was a note for the coaches in the room. I know some of you are therapists and coaches. The third way, which I thought was interesting, I didn't think about it because I was like, oh, I'll give an Oxford English Dictionary definition. That's always a good thing to put in a seminar. And then the third meaning of manipulation, to move as in a specialist who moves a person's bones or joints into the correct position. You go for some sort of therapy and they manipulate your joints. You've heard that expression. A chiropractor would be an example of somebody who manipulates joints to bring it back to correct alignment. So I like that. If you're going to be manipulative and I'm going to teach you, then let's make sure it's for the highest good of all concerned so that you are bringing the situation back to right alignment. So that if exploitation or abuse is occurring, you're manipulating to stop that, not exacerbate it. It's magic and I'm using it now. If you use it for anything else, it will blow up in your face and I will laugh. Next slide, please. Okay. There are assumptions that I'm making in this talk. I know some of you, I've interacted with you face-to-face via email, and I know I have a good sense of the people who follow myself and Sam. A lot of us would class ourselves as codependents, as fawn responders, as people pleasers. So the talk is geared towards us. Who's gonna want a seminar on how to manipulate a narcissist or psychopath? Somebody who's been hurt by a narcissist or psychopath, somebody who's in a bad power position. This is really important, what I'm about to say to you, because if you do class yourself as a codependent or you coach codependent types, there is a power blindness that we suffer from. And it's very dangerous. It leaves us very, very vulnerable to manipulation and counter-manipulation. Don't be power blind. Establish very clearly in your mind with the person you're thinking of, what is your power relationship with them? You could do an hour-long seminar on why we become power blind. It's a response to trauma. You will be familiar with, for people pleaser syndrome, an excessive conscientiousness and naivety. You're all familiar with these as concepts. Always trying to do good, always trying to bring things into balance to please everybody in the scenario. And we are politically, therefore, we tend to be left-leaning. We're egalitarian. No power, it's bad. Power is always bad. But power exists. No good, no bad. No story. It exists. Remember, machine-like, systems thinking. People exist in your life who have power over you. People exist in your life who you have power over. Shoot him immediately. No, gulag first. Shooting is too good. Don't waste a bullet, comrade. It's your job. So you have power over people, and people have power over you. Yes or no? Right? It's not cool. I might not like it. It might be against my philosophy or my political leaning, but it is true. Whatever that person in your life has over you in terms of power, externalize and put a boundary around it that this is the power they have over me. They control access to my kids. They're the president of my country. They have the power over whether I get to continue renting in the place I want to rent. Identify it. These are the things we don't want to look at. The things that we don't want to look at are the things that fuck us up time and again. Look into the blind spots, please. There's an awakening that needs to occur. If you've been drawn to a seminar like this, there's some kind of awakening that needs to occur, because your blind spots are what they're already using to manipulate you with. There's no power dynamic here. La, 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 la. Happy little yoga people. I meet them. I'm one of them. I'm hanging out with them. If I do good in the world, good will come my way. Yeah. Till it fucking doesn't. Till you meet one of these people and they're like, oh, yes, that's a true story. Come here, come. Into the abyss. So who is this person to you and who are you to them? Look objectively. Look objectively. Some of you I can see are struggling. You're in a struggle and it hurts and you're in ongoing pain over this kind of thing. take a long, hard, objective look from a philosophical perspective. Who is this person to me? Who am I to them? From their point of view, not yours. We call ourselves empathic. We call ourselves super compassionate. And yet we lack the ability to see the world through their eyes. What's that called? Blind spot. I can see it through your eyes, Oh, but for a psychopath or a narcissist, no. I mustn't. I would never. Well, now you must. Look at the world through their eyes. Who are you to them? You are familiar for terms that Sam coined, like narcissistic supply. You are narcissistic supply to them. You are whatever it is. But look and have it boundaried and objective and externalized, not in a blind spot. I can speak English. It's my first language. What are your assets and strengths? And what are your vulnerabilities and potential targets? So another recurring theme as I talk to you today is going to be looking at things in the way that people would be encouraged to look at them in the military or in the security industry. Dispassionately, objectively. You have assets. You do. You're probably blind to them. You're probably blinding yourself because you choose to remain power blind to the strengths that you already have. There are things that you could do or could say that would elicit a response that would be positive for you, but you don't want to because it feels funny, feels bad, so you don't want to go there. So take a long, hard, objective look at your assets and your strengths, and then, as you would if you were a country at war, what are my vulnerabilities? Where are my weaknesses? If I move like this on the chessboard, what's this fucker going to do? This is the opposite of naivety. This is called being cunning. People who identify as codependents, as fawn responders, they don't like the idea of being cunning. They don't like the idea of being worldly. Well, if you want to play the game, you're going to have to be cunning. You're going to have to be worldly. We're pretending we don't know what the other person is thinking whilst knowing perfectly well. It's a game that we play with ourselves as a result of trauma. It's a traumatic response. If you're looking at that person and you're looking to manipulate them, if you were an intelligence officer and you were working an asset, Sam can tell you a lot more about this than I can. How do you reward or punish the asset? How do you cajole them? How do you manipulate them? Reward, punish. Pain, pleasure. There's nothing else in manipulation. That's what you do. You either offer reward for the desired behavior or you say do that or else. How might they reward or punish you in turn? It would be a good idea for you to actually have this written down somewhere, perhaps somewhere nice and safe where they'll never find it, so you know what their next move might be. If I do this, what will be their counter move? And here's the most important thing, and it's a little bit low here, so I'll just shout it at you. Are you safe? Are you safe? Do not do anything that I suggest or anybody suggests or the person next to you suggests today if it compromises your safety. This is not a self-protection seminar. Not a self-protection seminar. These are ideas. If you are not physically safe, that is instantly a self-protection issue, and that's a completely different thing. You need to inform the authorities, and you need to go through the standard operational procedures of making yourself safe, which we're not covering today. Okay, here's a key principle for you. If you're taking notes, I suggest you write this down. Please internalize it. Please internalize this. Ask yourself the question, before I proceed, do I need to alter some element of the external power dynamic first? If so, then do that before proceeding. Look, I have a boss and I work for him, but I really, really need this job. If I lose this job, I'm going to get kicked out of my apartment and a catastrophic line of events is going to take place. So I start to manipulate him, and he realizes and he gets pissed off, and with one flick of his hand and a signature, I'm out of a job, I'm out of where I'm living, and my life sucks. Don't be fools. See the power dynamic for what it is. Realize where you're up to. What would be a more intelligent thing for me to do? I should say, wow, in this power dynamic, this one dude, this bad dude, has a lot of power over me. I'm very vulnerable. Do you see how that's empowering? It's empowering for you to realize the truth of your situation. If you're vulnerable, then say, I'm vulnerable. If this person is powerful, then say, they're powerful. Don't do these weird ego masturbatory games in the head of going, no, I am powerful because I'm spiritually aligned and I do yoga and I'm a vegan. But they're not. This is, Nietzsche called this the slave mentality. It's really dangerous and it's extremely tempting, especially if you've been oppressed for years. If you've been the target of narcissistic or psychopathic abuse for years, It's very tempting to withdraw into bizarre fantasies about how I'll be rewarded, but only after I'm dead. You know, that's no good. I don't want that for you. That's not a way to live life, and it's not the only option you have. You can actually start to engage in the external world, the power dynamics in the external world. So don't internalize everything and try and change the story from inside. That's sick. It's a defense mechanism, and it's an infantile defense mechanism, which is what narcissism is, an infantile defense mechanism, which is why there are many attributes and behaviors that put us on the same spectrum. So what modality are you seeking to manipulate through? As I said, there aren't that many choices. There's only pain or pleasure. You're either moving towards an objective, which would be, oh dear, I've written reward threat twice. If you're moving them towards an objective, then it's going to be, typically, it's going to be more reward-based. If it's away from an objective, it will usually be more threat-based. But you can do both. Remember, the pleasure principle is just pain or pleasure, reward or threat. So as you're sat there now, if I naively assume that there's one person in your life that you're looking to manipulate, you would actually need to stack two columns. What are the potential threats that I can make? What are the potential rewards that I can offer? How can I negotiate? Generally speaking, it is better, as in safer for you, if you do it through the reward system. You need to be in a hell of a strong external power dynamic to make threats. Do not make threats that you are not prepared to follow through on. That is a huge mistake with a psychopath or a narcissist. Huge mistake. So again, we can't afford to remain in our infantile, imaginary world. Well, I am superpowered and I can do this and I can do that. And the moment comes and they go on then. And you go, I don't want to. I don't like that behavior. It's wrong. So if you're not prepared to do it, don't threaten it. There's, in my other life, I taught self-protection for about 10 years, and I did 10 years of nightclub security. And intent is hugely powerful, and people feel it. Not just narcissists and psychopaths who are attuned to the hypervigilant scanning and checking of other humans. Not just them, all humans, even when they're drunk, feel it. There's a difference between saying, you know, listen, lads, you're going to have to get down off the tables or we'll have to throw you out, and looking at them going, time to get down now, mate. It's not the words. You've come here for techniques. It's not the techniques. It's the principles and it's the intent. So if your intent is, do it or else, I feel it. If your intent is, do it or else, something, maybe I'll do it, I'm going to be like, fuck this. I'm just going to keep going and see what this person does. They'll call you a bluff. And really, don't bluff. Don't bluff, because I can't teach you. Nobody can teach you inside of a 5-6 hour seminar like how to meet them at their level. They've been doing this since they were children. They know nothing else. You know, 24/7, every moment that they're alive, they're in manipulation mode. I can't accelerate you to that level. So don't bluff. If you're taking notes, write that in capital letters. No bluffing. Your intent counts. If you make a threat or you're offering a reward, you should be ready to follow through. And generally speaking, my advice would be, if you're going to follow through, then they need to feel that you're going to follow through. It makes a huge difference. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, the first step when it comes to the manipulation of a narcissist or psychopath is the worldview of the psychopath, the borderline, narcissist, or histrionic is infantile. Totally infantile. It's not, this person is not what you think they are. If you've come here naively to learn how to manipulate a narcissist or psychopath, wonderful. I can teach you how to do that, but you need to realize that your view of who they are is probably skew-if. It's probably off. So if you've gone, no, I just want to learn how to manipulate a psychopath, the reason why I know it's off is they're the easiest fucking people in the world to manipulate. The worldview is infantile. It's the view of a little boy or a little girl who's living a fantasy of omnipotence, of being super powerful. Why would that be hard? Is it hard to manipulate a 4-year-old? It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And that's where the traumatic freeze response, that's where they're stuck, is in that age. So it should be ridiculously easy to manipulate this person. But we're playing, we, the codependents, we play a game where we live inside of what Freud would call the fetishist split, where we blind ourselves. We go, no, it's hard. They're not powerful, you know, that's cheap. What they're doing is cheap con artistry. No, 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 they're all powerful. They're demonic. They're from another world. They're alien. They're this, they're that. They're a representation of whatever you see on the fucking forums. It's a human being, a vulnerable human being, a vulnerable human being who is traumatized. They're in the most impressionable state a human being can be in. Normal life, I think, I suspect, is a series of shocks. It's always shocking because they're not emotionally maturing. So it's a perpetual shock. They stay in a fuck response. Oh dear. I keep swearing. I'll keep going. I've sworn now. I've broken the seal. Why stop? I'm enjoying it. When muggers want to mug people, and they pull out a knife and they go, give us your money. They're not really there to stab you. You all know that, right? Like, that's not an effective way of taking cash off people. And if you get caught and you've been stabbing people, the police get so cross with you. They put you away for a long time. The point of pulling out a knife, shouting at somebody and saying, give us your money, is to shock you. So you go, and in that shock, you do as you're told. Any of you have watched Darren Brown, the street hypnotist chap, you'll have seen him do that time and again. He can get people to give wallets, to give watches with a straight face. It's just shock. It's just shocking the system. What I'm claiming is most of the time that certainly at the narcissistic end of the spectrum, the person is already in a kind of shocked state. So they're super, super impressionable. They're super fallible to con artistry, which is why many times cluster B people end up with each other. We all believe that the world is made up of cluster B partner with a codependent. This is some weird binary black and white thinking that we've created based on our own pain and our own trauma. Actually, the world is created of people who are in cluster B disorder spectrum spaces, meeting up with each other and getting into a power dynamic. Again, that's not based on research. That's my personal opinion. That's what the world is really made up of. Not angels versus demons, but people who are traumatized and in pain in a power fight with each other. In principle, manipulating them should be the easiest thing in the world. And what I hope to do, I will give you techniques because it's fun. But what I hope to do by the end of the day is lift that veil a little bit where you can go, actually, I always knew how to get this guy. I just didn't want to accept my own power in the situation because I wanted to be power blind. Actually, I always knew how to deal with this girl. I know her better than anybody. Of course, I know what to do with her. But I didn't want to accept that. For some of us, it's like this morality issue. Oh, I don't want to be like them. I don't want to be like a narcissist or a psychopath. I don't want to do that. I give you permission. Go with God. Te absolvo. If it's for your highest good, the highest good of people around you, and it brings things back into alignment and stops exploitation, go ahead. Behaving in this way does not make you rubber-stamped in the eyes of the Lord, some strange other thing. This is the type of mythical, magical thinking that a lot of us are engaging in that keeps us stuck. Next slide, please, and then I'll be handing over to Mr. Vaknin. Thank you. Okay, a quick cover of the mindset of the cluster B, which is going to further my suggestion that the people you're dealing with are very, very impressionable and very easy to manipulate. Because they also suffer with naivety. So you would think, no, it's the codependent who's naive. It's the codependent who's perpetually in a state of conscientiousness and not understanding how the world is. But the psychopath or narcissist, they're out there in the world. It's a false worldliness. It's a false cynicism. It's an act. It's a mask. It's a cover. This is what the false self is trying perpetually to convince the world. No, I'm worldly. I'm wise. I'm cunning. I'm in control. I'm at all times. I'm powerful. How could I be naive? I know the world. I know people. No, it's a completely naive headspace. It's an unworldly headspace full of fantastical ideas. Why? Because this 4-year-old is trying to figure out the adult world, and it's bewildering. It's bewildering. Why the fuck do adults do this? What? But in order to feed the false self, it's necessary to pretend to be wise. So the people, if those of you are here for a specific person, you've probably been tricked into thinking that their cynicism and worldliness is real. It's not. It's part of the false self. It's a front. They're highly susceptible to flattery. They're highly susceptible to con artistry and trickery, especially if it's been preempted with flattery. So if you butter somebody up, you ego pump them, and then you come in with the trickery and the con artistry, they're perpetually, going to be susceptible to it. My father, not long out of prison, I tell you that because that he is not diagnosed, but probably is both a narcissist and a psychopath, always was getting stuck in cons, because in his view of the world, even as the last time I know of him doing it, he gave somebody on a telephone in America £10,000 because I am worldly, I'm a businessman, I'm an entrepreneur, I know a good deal when I hear one. He was being called by a boiler room that was trying to sell him gold in America. And he said, no, I know this guy, I trust this guy, he's a good guy, he's a good guy. I was like, how many times has he called you? He's called me 4 or 5 times a day, we've been talking for a week. Have you ever seen the film Boiler Room with Ben Affleck? It's worth a look. I handed him this. I said, just have a little look at that. Let me know how your 10 grand's getting on. Never heard the story again. If I brought it up, he'd just changed the subject completely. But it's a sense of, no, I know how the world is. There couldn't possibly be fake. And then they are conned. They don't adapt to external information quickly or effectively. And the rigid worldview that they have is fixed, so they can't adapt to things changing rapidly. That's not an option on the table for them. The worldview fixity is part of the trauma response, the fact that you're dealing with somebody who, at a very, very young age, experienced horrifying trauma, very, very hard levels of trauma that completely obliterated the ego and caused the necessity for creating a false self that's mythical, that's magical, that's godlike in some way. All of these things make any person, not your person, not the person you're thinking of, but anybody who has these traits is going to be hugely easy to manipulate because they can't adapt to the changing, nuanced terrain of the adult world. Next slide, please, Mr. Howard. Thank you. Okay, your third step. If you're going to go down this road, you've done all your checks, you've checked the power dynamic, you've checked your intent, you've checked the emotion, and you've checked that you are safe. The third step is, as you would as an intelligence officer if they were working an asset would, is to build rapport. Tell the person what they want to hear. Appeal to their vanity. This is not cluster Bs that this works for. This works for humans because we all have something called healthy narcissism. Healthy narcissism has nothing to do with narcissistic personality disorder. They happen to share the same word, that's all. So if in sales, what they teach you is what is everybody's favorite topic of discussion, themselves. So if you're a salesperson and you're trying to build rapport, you get the person start talking about themselves. You plug them into themselves. They can talk about themselves, they talk about their story, reinforces the sense of self, strengthens the sense of self, makes them feel good, makes them feel heard and seen, which is addictive, by the way, but Sam's going to be getting into that. And it will put them into a comfortable state of mind. Sam, I'm going to hand over to you now. Sam's going to talk and up until 12, and then we're all going to take a break.
So I'm here to answer any questions you may have. I'm offering you a privileged access to the narcissist and psychopath's mind. Since most of the language in use today I had to coin in 1995, I also offer you privileged access to the history of the whole field. So I've been here since 1995. I'm as old as the dinosaurs and getting as extinct as they are. So any questions you may have about narcissist mind, psychopath's mind, narcissists in the workplace, co-parenting with narcissists, anything. I'm here to help and to provide insight, I hope.
I'll be your codependent appendage and hand the microphone to anybody. If you want to speak, you need the mic just so we can...
So who is the first brave soul? You look like a brave soul. Okay.
Talk right close. Bring the mic close enough.
Hi, my name is Sandra.
You would have to speak up. I'm hearing impaired.
My name is Sandra.
Hello, Sandra.
Of course, I was married to one. He's obviously trying to keep the control. His control is always his best asset, is silence. we went through 4 years of court proceeding. Also got 2 almost adult kids involved. I'm specifically worried about the youngest one because he's a boy and he's living with them at the moment. Although from what I know, there is not much of a rapport between the 2 of them. Still, it's living in the same place and that really pisses me off. But his best arm is silence. So whichever way I try to approach him, his answer is silence. I know he receives an email if I send it to him.
Sounds like the NHS. Yeah.
And I work for it as well, but never mind.
Sorry.
So I just don't know how to shake. The only time I shook him off is when he went off for 6 weeks and he left my son almost by himself. And when I called him, he didn't answer me. Pardon?
How old is your son?
17.
17. That's hardly a child. Yeah. Okay.
But he wouldn't answer my call. He didn't tell me he was going away. When my daughter called him, I said I want to speak with him. And the only time he really reacted is when I said to him for once, "You will see what's going to happen if you go." He just flipped. And that was the best of 4 years of fight. But the things that he's not replying, and he's involving both children. They're not children as age, but and that's what I don't want to do. That's never what I want to do. Get them involved between the 2 of us.
But they are involved.
Yeah, they are involved. But if he needs to speak to me about, I don't know, the divorce settlement, he doesn't have to get them involved. They don't
But he did get them involved.
They don't want to know. That's what they say to me. And what they're trying to do is just let him have it.
But I'm trying to convey to you, he's playing chess, and you insist to play poker.
Okay. There you go.
He's playing chess. Either you play chess,
Yeah.
then you have a stand a chance to win. But if you insist to play poker, I'm afraid, you're getting nowhere. One of the main mistakes of people who interact with narcissists is I'm not going to play the narcissist game. I'm not going to stoop to his level. I'm not going to adopt his strategies. I'm going to provide an anti-narcissistic example to my children. I'm not going to alienate them, parentally alienate them. I'm going to be the good parent, and so on and so forth. And that's very noble, however, not very practical. But before I delve a bit deeper into this, silence on such a scale, I'm not talking about silent treatment, 2-3 days, but silence on such a scale is actually not indicative of narcissism at all. It's indicative of passive aggression. It's it used to be known as passive aggressive personality disorder. Then it's been reclassified and acquired the title negativistic personality disorder. Then it's been removed out of the DSM altogether, which proved that the DSM committee is probably passive-aggressive and narcissistic, from personal knowledge, and so on and so forth. But seriously, it's indicative of a different mindset. Now, passive aggression and narcissism have a lot in common, but passive aggression is much more akin to covert narcissism than to overt narcissism. So, in everything you've told me, I think the useful insights I can offer to you, and before we proceed, by the way, it's not a problem if you use your personal stories as levers or as launching pads, but let's try to generalize a little, because that's not a therapy session, that's a seminar. So you could start with a personal story, 2-3 sentences, and then please try to ask a generalized question so that everyone can benefit. But I would, as to your highly specific case, the insights I can offer very briefly are the following. You still tend to see your children as children, and they're not. it behooves you and it satisfies deep emotional needs in you to continue to see them as children. You should ask yourself why. Second observation is that you seem to be very invested in his diagnosis, or ostensible diagnosis, as a narcissist. And actually, most of the behaviors that you describe have very little to do with narcissism. He's an abuser, many types of abusers, but have very little to do with narcissism. Now, that's not very useful as far as you're concerned. I mean, if you get the right label, you also get the right tools. The third thing I would say is that you refuse to play his game. And that, as I started my presentation, is a mistake. You must play his game. And you must be better at it than he is. For example, one of the main ways to get him to communicate is to cease all communication altogether. Ostentatiously. Not like... So that's an example of how you have to play his game. You have to leverage his insecurities, his vulnerabilities. So in many respects, you have to psychopathize yourself. It's extremely unfortunate, but when you deal with psychopaths, you have to be a bit psychopathic. When you deal with narcissists, you have to be a bit narcissistic, and when you deal with aggressives, you have to be passive-aggressive. So because your question has been highly specific, I'm unable to generalize, and that's a good example why we should balance personal and general. Any, yes?
So right into the mic, nice and harsh. Thank you.
No.
Yes.
Whatever it
Now,
is, no.
no. Okay, now, my husband is a narcissist, and I'm very good at flattering, so I will pay a lot of compliments to him, like, you've lost weight, have you had your hair cut? Or just cook. Yeah? Would you like to be my husband for the next 2 minutes?
Well,
So whatever, you know,
object
but then what happens...
if it's an honest question,
No, what happens is that after a while, the flattery...
But usually it takes me longer than 2 minutes.
Now the flattery usually gets to a plateau, and then my power decreases, you know, so I need to switch and go to a threatening mode. Now, how do I do that without getting in danger? That's my question.
There are 3 ways to maintain a high level of arousal or excitation with a narcissist. What you're asking is, how do I maintain a high level of arousal? Mm-hmm. Arousal could be sexual, could be non-sexual, etc., etc. But how do I maintain a high level of arousal? How do I get him to be on his toes? How do I get him to walk on eggshells? Not me. So essentially there are 3 ways. Withholding supply, providing sophisticated, finely tuned, crafted, well-crafted supply, but in highly specific ways, so I'll come to each one. And the third one is shared psychosis, creating a shared psychotic disorder. These are the 3, and now I'll elaborate a bit on each one of them, because this happens, I think, to coincide with the title of the seminar. Useful. Yes, very useful. I mean, counterproductive, because, you know, they won't come to therapy and everything, but we'll try. So, the first is simple, you withhold supply. Simply withhold supply. But again, everything you do with the narcissist has to be ostentatious. The reason is that narcissists don't have a reality test. Narcissists live inside their mind, utterly and totally. Narcissists interact only with inner objects, inner representations. Narcissism in general, a great definition of pathological narcissism, would be someone who never interacts with external objects. But what he does instead, he takes an external object, internalizes that object, and then continues the interaction with the internal object. Mm-hmm. So because narcissists live entirely in their heads, they are devoid of a reality test. In other words, they are not aware of reality. They're not aware sometimes of themselves, but they are always not aware of reality. The only way is to shake them. So if you withhold supply, you do it ostentatiously. So you do it with body language, you do it with clear, you do it with... It has to be a theatre production. It's not enough...
Slamming doors.
It's not... It depends how sturdy the door is, but or if it's a glass door, I wouldn't advise. So it's not enough to assume that if you engage in nuanced, behavior, the narcissist will read the cue. Narcissists are very similar to people with autism spectrum disorders. They, well, this courtship is advancing very rapidly, and we may end up finally getting married. But narcissists are very much like people with what used to be called Asperger's disorder. They are very bad at reading cues, not only social cues, but sexual cues, social cues, non-verbal cues like body language, etc., etc. They're utterly oblivious to anything that is not actually in your face, shove it down their throat, or some other part of their anatomy, very powerfully. So this is very important. Withholding supply must be ostentatious, must be actually aggressive. It must involve aggression. Narcissists cannot survive without supply for long, so they have two choices. They can devalue you and replace you, because all of you are utterly interchangeable. So you can devalue and replace, so never do it for too long. So if you do it for too long, you have lost your status as a secondary source of supply, and he will find someone else. Yes, hoovering is actually what a narcissist does, but yeah.
I can learn to do that too.
You can learn to do that too. The second strategy is to provide richly textured, high-quality supply, because there are various forms and various types of supply. There is fake narcissistic supply. There is negative narcissistic supply. There's positive. It's not. I mean, all of you are using narcissistic supply. It's a whole science. There's a whole science behind it. For example, there's something called fake narcissistic supply. There's narcissistic supply that is so shoddy, so badly constructed, so cheap, that even the narcissist realizes he's being conned and manipulated. Right? Like, Sam, you are so handsome, you're so tall. That's fake narcissistic supply. Yes? But Sam, you're a genius. That could pass. Because it's absolutely true. What was it? Oh, getting married. Okay, so when you provide supply, when you do provide supply, it has to be doled out in escalating quantities. You never maintain a plateau. I think your problem is that you're maintaining a plateau. You never maintain a plateau, but there must be a procedure of escalation. Start with 1 compliment a day, then 2 compliments a day, 3 compliments, and Richard will tell you this is called reinforcement, positive reinforcement, which essentially leads to conditioning, not to addiction, to conditioning. The narcissist is addicted to the supply, but you can condition him as to the way the supply is delivered. Conditioning and addiction, two totally different mechanisms. So, that's one way. Another way is never to provide supply which pertains to the same subject. So if you tell the narcissist one day, great haircut, you look 20 years younger, don't follow up in the afternoon, wow, you're very muscular. I mean, go to another field.
Smart.
You're smart. I mean, and then the next day, you're smart, and then etc. I mean, always vary, always. That's also very important. It must be richly textured in the sense that you must put some effort into the supply. You can't just, off the cuff. I mean, you must think, you must analyze, and then you must construct. Each bit of supply must be a masterpiece of short fiction, a literary piece. That's a very interesting observation. First, because it came from me, and second, because only Richard gets my jokes. Okay. And the second reason is because literature is not life. The narcissist lives in a narrative space where, of course, the false self is a piece of fiction. You might well reconceive of the narcissist as a protagonist in a movie. But he also, because he's a narcissist, he also writes a script, he directs the movie, etc., etc. So, whatever supply you provide has to conform to the plot, has to drive the plot forward, has to be high quality literarily, I mean from a literary point of view, etc., etc. You can't just provide supply. Should you do this, the narcissist will never be sated, will be insatiable. He will always seek you out. High quality sources of supply are addictive to the narcissist. So, and he never lets them go. In the 20s, 30s, 40s, I mean, and there's something called the stability shift, or stability focus shift. Narcissists have a focus of stability and a focus of instability. All narcissists have one area where they're stable, and all other areas are unstable. So you can have a narcissist, for example, who climbs the corporate ladder for 40 years, starts at the bottom, the machine floor, and he ends to be the chief executive officer of the company. He's very stable. He pursues a stable career. But then he would be married 5 times, would have lovers, there's a focus of instability and a focus of stability. If you want the narcissist in your life, so I have no idea why you would, but if you do, you would make sure that you become the focus of stability. And a great way to become the focus of stability is to provide high quality, well-structured, literary form narcissistic supply, with proper intervals, with variation of content, with, By the way, narcissistic life doesn't have to be about the narcissist. It can be about his friends, his job, the city you live in, that he had chosen. Anything that has indirectly connected to the narcissist. And the third technique is shared psychosis, which is by far the most powerful technique. Shared psychosis is simply consenting to form Shared psychosis is simply consenting to form a cult with the narcissist, where there's one leader and one follower, and you're the follower if you didn't get it. So this is a cult situation. It's shared psychosis in the sense that you agree to suspend the reality test as much as a narcissist does. So then what happens? You have a shared space. I might make use of. Thanks. Then you have a shared space, a common space, where you both agree on a delusion, it's like to do with reality, perpetuate this delusion, have a common list of enemies and adversaries against whom you act. Yes? Isolate yourself socially, totally, from family, from friends, from everything. Engage in activities which indicate paranoia, for example. So a shared psychosis could be a conspiracy theory.
Can I?
Not before I finish. And that applies not only to the seminar, but to other types of activities. So a shared psychosis is extremely powerful because what happens is the narcissist gets trapped in the delusion. Because remember, narcissist life is a movie. It's a movie about a movie. And he gets absolutely trapped. Now the thing is that if you become the follower in this cult, or a figment of the shared psychosis, the narcissist will never ever let you go. Because when you go, the shared psychosis collapses and he is immediately exposed to reality. And remember, narcissists have very dysfunctional defenses, precisely why they are narcissists. Most healthy people, there are 2 or 3 here, most healthy people have defenses, operative psychological defense mechanisms. We all use defense mechanisms to falsify reality, and in this highly technical sense, we actually all live in shared psychosis, many shared psychosis. Because the role of defense mechanisms, all defense mechanisms, is actually to fend off reality, put some distance, or to recast reality, to rewrite it in a way that is not dissonant, to avoid dissonance, etc. But the narcissist, his defense mechanisms actually don't work well. And of course, the residence of many defense mechanisms is what Freud used to call ego. And narcissists have no ego. That's exactly opposite to everything you had been told. Narcissists have no ego. Because they have no ego, they import ego functions from the outside. Because two of the two main functions of the ego is first to mediate with reality. Ego is the interface with reality. Narcissists don't have that. That's why they have no reality test. And to regulate a sense of self-worth. The ego regulates the sense of self-worth. Narcissists cannot do that. That's why they need narcissistic supply. So if you become a figment of this alternative universe which provides ego functions and so on and so forth, narcissists will never let you go. Absolutely never.